We are live. Welcome to my video. This is going to be my review and thoughts of 2024's Joker 2, or Joker Folie Deux. Apologies, not to my French teacher, but for French people who aren't jerks, for that pronunciation. And, yes. Gonna start with a spoiler-free review. Will warn before I get into the spoilers. And let's just start with the... this one does a fantastic job following up on the first one. It's one of those sequels. It's not trying to be the next adventure of thing. It's saying, okay, so that happened. Now what? You know, what? It actually explores the ramifications of the first movie. And I suppose, I don't know if I'm going to be able to... Yeah, I'm probably going to be spoiling the first movie. I'm not sure how much I can talk about this movie without spoiling the first. Blanket might spoil other DC movies. I suppose I shouldn't call it the DCEU, because technically this is like Elseworlds. But yeah, if the first movie was Taxi Driver, and I hear it also has a lot of King of Comedy, if, you know, those were secretly about the Joker, the Batman nemesis, then this one is basically Moulin Rouge if it were like a hypothetical sequel to Taxi Driver, which... Was there supposed to be a game and Scorsese killed it? See, sometimes that guy has the absolute right instincts. I'm sorry. I love video games. I love Taxi Driver. The two don't mix. And right, with a little bit of like script doctoring by Oliver Stone. That's basically, you know, it is a musical. There's not as much music as not as much singing, at least, as I had maybe theorized there would be. Some people think it's too much, some people think it's too little. I think it's very much based on how you feel about musicals. I am ready to come out of my shell. Right. There will be swearing in this video, as, you know, there's not a huge amount of swearing in the movie, but it is an R-rated movie, at times hard R. There will be swearing in this movie. I'm ready to say it. I fucking love musicals. I'm done wasting effort trying to pretend that I don't. I've always loved musicals. Sue me. And yeah, this, you know, I was kind of expecting this to be something along the lines of... I keep fucking forgetting his name, but the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. I forget but yeah. The Tim Burton, you know, Johnny Depp adaptation of that, which I have heard is not quite as good as other versions. I'd like to watch other versions as well. You know, this very, you know, it has darkness like that one does, but there is more singing in that one, and that one also has, like, original songs. The original version of it has original songs. This... And that's part of why I compare this to Moulin Rouge. This is, because I've wasted so much time not being open about loving musicals, I don't know enough about the terminology to do this movie justice. But as far as I understand, it's what's called a jukebox musical. I don't think there's a single original song in this, and that's not a criticism. That's just, you know... Much like the first and the Joker in general, you know, it's basically taking things we know and putting something of a twist on it. That is one thing I will say, the music in this was not necessarily as twisted. It is essentially like, you know, more or less playing straight, you know, Joker and Harley Quinn falling in love, you know, and that's not a spoiler. It starts very early on, and yeah, it's a romantic musical, is, I believe, what the appropriate term is. It's about these two falling in love, and the kind of, yeah, the issues that arise from there's that thing about, be careful. Fuck, I think it was someone saying in a review of The Piano Teacher, which is amazing, by the way. If you haven't watched it, like, if you can stomach it, it's absolutely amazing. I'm not gonna spend forever explaining why. I did a video on it. Really, really love that movie. Anyway, the yeah, in a review of that, someone said, people usually say, be careful what you wish for. This movie says, be careful who loves you, or something like that. And that's very much, that's this movie, and that's Joker and Harley Quinn in general, Yeah, so yeah, to be clear, this does not have the manic camera work and editing of Baz Luhrmann, and I don't think it should. I'm glad that it doesn't. It does feel more Scorsese, much like the first one. That I definitely want to make sure I say that so I don't forget. We're seeing a lot of, the MCU has house style, and some of the DCU movies also just, yeah, they don't stand out enough, and they kind of rely on fairly basic, camera work and cutting and such. And this, like the first one, and like some others, we're not saying these are the only ones, but we are getting these, I hesitate to call them comic book adaptations, because it's not taking any specific comic. It's essentially taking the concept of Joker from the Batman comics and putting this more cinematic spin on it. That, there's a lot of things in these two movies that you could not do on comic book panels. And I say that as someone who loves comic books. But yeah, this is, I really, really appreciate all the incredible skill on display in the cinematography and the editing, just these striking images, and the way they'll actually go and do the, I don't know if, and I know that I'm not gonna, I'm gonna try not to open that can of worms again, but Scorsese did say, he was quoted as saying, I think, it's been a while since I read the entire thing. I think he added some important context, but he was quoted as saying, Marvel movies aren't cinema. And I'm not 100% sure if anybody has asked him about what he thinks about the first Joker movie. And certainly I don't know if he's been able to watch this one yet, but I have a feeling he would call these two cinema. This really is, and that's something, I love these movies, but every so often I just gotta watch something that is like classic cinema, and just, feel something more intensely, more deeply. And I wouldn't say that these two Joker movies get quite as, I do feel more watching, for example, Taxi Driver or a Cronenberg film or something, but yeah, these movies, they actually are willing to push the boundaries and do something, say something that way too many of these movies are just terrified of, Yeah, the singing is fantastic. Yeah, we knew that Joaquin could sing because he did his own singing in Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash bio, and if you didn't know that Lady Gaga could sing, how is it living under the rock in a cave on Mars? Are your ears sore from having your fingers jammed in them for so long? Are you adjusting to the light after having had your eyes shut for this long? They're fantastic together. Both of them deliver such compelling performances, and I mean each aspect of their performances. and they're electric together. Like, the chemistry, fuck, just amazing. We have not seen in live action this kind of, like, it really nails the Joker Harley dynamic. You know, I'll grant that Suicide Squad 2016 goes for it, and I do still hold Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn in very high regard. I don't, it feels off to compare Gaga and Robbie because they're not quite, it's not quite the same versions. It's like comparing Joaquin to Heath Ledger, R.I.P. It's just, yeah, technically the same character, but it's such a different take on it. But for sure, Gaga does amazing with it and carves out her own, you know, like, Jared Leto's Joker. You know, I like some of Leto's performances. I really think, you know, it was incredibly misjudged. I'm still not. Let's see, was it his idea or did David Ayer? No, I think David Ayer basically just kind of unleashed him and didn't tell him to do those fucked up things he did on and off camera. Yeah, just this is a, yeah, Gaga does absolutely amazing. It really does feel like you 100% believe that she would fall for Arthur Fleck. You know, and again, Robbie did sell that as well. But Robbie, once she got more than one movie, she was able to really make the character complex and feel like a real person in that first movie. I don't think it was her fault. It was the writing and the editing. Yeah, it just didn't completely. And here, you know, yeah, Gaga was given that in the first time she played Harley. It really, yeah, it feels like a real person. Not necessarily a person you would want to meet in person. You'd be terrified of her, but like, yeah, it feels real. Like, this is one of those performances. If I didn't know, like, I've seen Gaga in Interview. I don't think I've seen her very much in other. She was phenomenal in Machete Kills. You know, I don't think I've seen her in anything else. I know. You don't have to post in the comments. You can put it in the comments. You know, engagement's engagement. But I am aware I have to watch A Star Is Born. I'm probably going to try to find copies of both movies because I hear great things about both. Yeah, just if I hadn't seen that, I would think, oh, is this just what she's like? You know, is she actually this kind of unpredictable? I love how dangerous they made her feel, because that is the thing. Like, it's crucial to not every single depiction. Like, if you're just watching, like, it's been a long time since I watched the animated series, but from what I remember, Batman the Animated Series did not always push her as far. Like, early on, it wasn't as complex. You know, she was a fun character, and that was basically it. There wasn't a lot of depth to her. But if you're going to, like, really probe the relationship between her and Joker, yeah, you gotta have her also be somewhat dangerous, somewhat edgy, and they absolutely nail that. And again, I don't blame Robbie, but I do think that was missing from the. You know, she was edgy with other characters in 2016 Suicide Squad, but she wasn't really sufficiently edgy with Joker, especially if you only watch the theatrical cut. And no, the special edition, I forget, extended cut, I think it's what they called it. It doesn't save the movie. It's still a mess. But it does provide some. There's some really great stuff in there. You know, if you're up for watching it at least one more time and it's not super expensive, like, see if a friend has a copy or something, you know, or if you can stream it or rent it, something. you know how this works. Um, yeah, I think that brings us nicely onto... Yeah, so I mentioned Oliver Stone. So the first movie does bring up this thing of, you know, how does the public, and I suppose maybe I should specify the American public, because from what I've seen, this does seem to be more of a thing in America. And, you know, I'm not American myself, but I did go there, and I've encountered a number of people from there. So I do feel like I can speak to a lot of American culture. And, yeah, how do the American public respond to a violent criminal with a manifesto, you know? And you know, it's with when we're talking Oliver Stone, like the thing that especially like goes there with of his work is of course Natural Born Killers. And I think it's important to note, I don't think these two movies are trying to out Natural Born Killers, but if you are going to go there, comparisons are inevitable, and no, they really don't go quite far enough. But yeah, the first one definitely brings it up and has some compelling stuff about it. This one, you know, yeah, I would say goes further in there, or maybe just has other interesting things to say about it. You know, in the first one, it was very right. I suppose I should say, if you are, you know, if you didn't watch the first one and don't really feel like homework, and this movie looks great to you, you can watch it. You're not gonna like it. I feel like I don't know if that was always going to happen with this movie, or if that was like a studio note or something, because I feel like every comic book movie today that, you know, is a sequel does this in some way or another. Yeah, you know, by the end of this movie, you will know everything important that happened in the first movie. There's nothing that, you know, some of it you're told fairly late if you didn't watch the first movie, but it's in there. You know, you're not gonna be confused as used to be the case with... there's a lot of sequels that don't bring you up to speed. Let's see. So the yes, the did I say everything about the exploration of... Yeah, I think I might have... Yeah. Yeah, the various new cast members are fantastic. I'm gonna just make sure I get the names so that... okay, do we have it there? Okay, so if it'll open, and here we go. I want Brendan Gleeson to keep acting until he, you know, I mean, I suppose at some point he might lose interest in it, or just like retire or something. But as long as he keeps wanting to, I want him to keep going. It's unreal to me. He's so talented. He's been so talented for so many years, for decades now. You know, I've seen movies that he's in that came out 20 some years ago, and he's still amazing. You know, I hate this ageist shit of like, oh, you know, Over the Hill. A lot of them are, you know, continue to be absolutely incredible. You know, long into yeah. Yeah, Catherine Keener, still fantastic. Let's see. I think that might be about... yeah, this brings back some... Oh, right. Harry Lawdy plays... Oh, Lawdy. He plays a character I was not prepared for. I was nobody told me that Harry Lordy's Smarmy Dent, I mean Harvey Dent was gonna be this unbearable, and I fucking love it. Like traditionally Harvey Dent, it's like how in the first movie, like traditionally Thomas Wayne and Alfred, the Wayne butler, are like really wonderful people. You know, traditionally Harvey, he can have some ego, some arrogance, but he's fairly charismatic and like seemingly, you know, yeah, wants to do good. I can appreciate that Harvey is you know, he's fuck me. It's been so long since I used to watch so many like lawyer shows. I forget what it's prosecutor. He's not the defense. He's the yeah. He's, you know, he's trying to. It's Arthur Fleck. You know, dude killed 6 people that they know, or 5 that they know about. Yeah, you know, obviously there's probably some part of him that thinks he's doing the right thing. He doesn't have to be this fucking smug about, like, just, oh my god, just, yeah. I think someone who worked on this movie had a bad experience with a lawyer, because that's, like, fuck. Yeah, it brings back some faces from the first one. I think they do a great job. You know, it didn't ever feel like, you know, sometimes you'll watch a sequel and it's like, okay, there's no reason for the character to be there. You just wanted to work that actor again, didn't you? That doesn't feel. I'm sure they did have fun. You know, I'm not saying, but no, that they gave all of them something to do, and this actually answers a question or two that were left up in the air by the first one. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is going to come down to personal opinion. Overall, I do think that this movie has enough to justify. You know, I've seen some people say that they don't think it should exist. I absolutely disagree. Right, Ken Leung, great in this as well. Yeah, you know, always happy to see him in something. I can't help but wonder I realized that maybe someone thought Harley is a mouthful. They refer to Harley, you know, they do say that, you know, her actual name is Harley Quinzel, but people tend to refer to her as Lee. I that really reminded me of the 2003 movie Monster, which is about Eileen Wuornos, where they also say Lee, and that's also, you know, that is also a story about someone who was pushed over the edge and started committing murders. So, yeah, I can't, like Arthur, you know, so I feel like that's probably intentional reference. And there's, yeah, like the first one, there's some fun references here that I don't think I'm going to spend forever on, but there's definitely some One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest going on. The movie's brutally honest about how bad, you know, a lot of inmates are treated, both by other inmates and by guards and such. There's a non-zero number of times where something that happens in the prison feels like, oh, well, I guess we're back in fucking high school. What is this shit? And that is something that actually, you know, you see that in a lot of movies, yes, that deal with prisons. And it's also something you hear from, you know, when you hear people talk about what happened in prison, you know, how, yeah, the treatment, yeah, some of it does sound like just like a darker, you know, more violent version of high school. Let's see. I think that might be what I can say without getting too yeah, I think everything else I have to say requires spoilers. So, yeah, right. I was never bored. I've seen some people say it got tedious. I don't. I mean, if the movie doesn't work for you, I'm sure it is tedious. It absolutely worked for me. Um, yeah, I did want to just give a couple of examples. I talked about how, oh, how does the public respond to violence? You know, yeah, violent individuals with manifestos. We also see how the media acts, and that's also some, where it gets, very, very natural born killers. And yeah, we're told in this movie that after several pieces of media were made after the events of the first movie in universe. And you know what? I think I'm gonna leave it at that before we get into the spoiler sections, because I actually don't want to give away exactly what those are, because yeah. Yeah, I that's so right before we get into the spoilers. Right. Yes, one of the big things is, of course, the yeah, right. I was supposed to do this rating at the ranking at the start as well. Anyway, yeah, ranking, and I know not everything I'm about to say is a DCEU movie. I'm just saying recent movies that are DC. Yeah, ranking all of them worst to best. I love Shazam 2 and all I mentioned after that one. Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman 1984, Snyder Cut 2016, Suicide Squad, Jesus Christ, 2017 Justice League, Man of Steel, Black Adam, Shazam 2, The Flash, Aquaman 2, Blue Beetle, Wonder Woman 1, Aquaman 1, Shazam 1, Joker 2, Birds of Prey, 2021 Suicide Squad, and Joker 1. And yeah, I rate this 10 way too public courtroom trials of mass murdering clowns out of 10. And yeah, that brings us to the spoiler section. So I'm just going to real quick note when we got into, and it is, let's see, 27. There we go. There. And yeah, this is not gonna be all chronological, but I think the start is a good place to start. Didn't expect this to open the way it did, but yeah, the old Looney Tunes, or similar at least, Warner Brothers logo, and a Looney Tunes-y short cartoon about the Joker, and yeah, the Joker fighting his shadow, and his shadow getting him into trouble. Now, I'm not the best at analysis, but I feel like what we're seeing there is basically Arthur feels like, there's this one part of me that I just can't control. I'm trying to do my thing, and it fucks me over. It does something, and I'm the one who gets beaten up. That was also, quite brutal. They're beating him, and then we see, he lost teeth, and there's a puddle of blood where his face was. So just Jesus fucking Christ, yeah, and yeah, it's it might at first glance seem gratuitous and apropos of nothing. It's just like, oh, aren't we being wacky? But no, I mean, the movie is about our Arthur Fleck and the Joker, one and the same. It's the defense. The defense is no, they're two separate people, and with treatment, Arthur Fleck will never be the Joker again. Arthur himself, for a while, insists he is the Joker, and then near the end, says that that's not the, yeah. And let's see, yeah, throughout the movie, people around him, people in the prison, inmates and guards, keep trying to bring Joker out again. They keep saying, Fleck, you got a joke for us today, until they get a response, and yeah, the other inmates, yeah, they look up to him, and the guards just want an excuse to beat him, to say, oh, no, the Joker came back out, we had to beat him down, Really appreciate how harsh they got with the beatings and such, and also really appreciate that they understood there's some things we don't need to see. We don't need to see him being beaten that much in the bathroom. Like, it's clear that they're going to, and then it cuts to the aftermath, and he's just completely exhausted. They broke him, basically. And all that because he called them fat and stupid. That was the unacceptable thing. It wasn't after he killed 5 people. If they had beaten him that badly much earlier, then he wouldn't have been in such high spirits even after meeting Lee. It was after he insulted them in front of everyone. Their precious little egos were bruised, and they had to reassert their masculinity. There are a number of people who, I'm not saying everyone. I know there are some exceptions, but there are people who get into, who become prison guards and cops and such because they want to be brutal to other people. And that's an acceptable way. There's that bit in Monty Python's The Meaning of Life, where one of the soldiers says, how many people he killed, and then he says, back home they'd hang me, here they give me a medal. Under certain circumstances, violence is not only okay, not only encouraged, but actually rewarded. Some of the most praised law enforcement individuals are specifically ones who used violence. And let's see, we do not need to see, fuck me and names, I think his name was Ricky. We don't need to see him strangled to death. The fact that, and it is also seeing Arthur hear it, and him knowing, if I hadn't encouraged all of this, if I had just kept a low profile once I was put in prison, and also if I hadn't, if he hadn't killed people back then, Ricky would still be alive. He might not be he might not have the best judgment. But and obviously, you're never 100% to blame for if somebody else kills someone, that's not on you. That's on the person who killed. Obviously, if you abuse someone until they kill someone, then you bear a lot of responsibility. But Arthur he wasn't that abusive towards the guard, who also has way more power in this situation, this dynamic. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna just real quick, just so I don't forget, because I definitely want to mention the ending is this fantastic reversal, and to bring it back to yeah, as mentioned, the first movie has a lot of Taxi Driver going on. Yeah, do I want to spoil Taxi Driver? I suppose for now I'm not spoiling Taxi Driver. I'll just say that the ending felt very much like one particular part of Taxi Driver, which I believe people who have watched it and remember it will be able to deduce what I mean. But yeah, you know, he killed Murray very abruptly and you know, telling a joke, which, you know, not as much of a joke as just him saying how he feels about, you know, and that exact thing ends up happening to him. You know, live by the sword, die by the sword. One of the, I believe that is from the Bible. Not the biggest fan of the Bible, but I will admit there are certain parts that are quite good. I like a lot of the, you know, Jesus socialist stuff. Yeah, you know, and there are a number of people who engaged in violence and ended up meeting a very violent end themselves. And there are a lot of people who were killed by someone who used to look up to them. You know, basically he feels betrayed. You know, also, I don't think they say his name, but he starts cutting his face. Is that supposed to be like Victor Zaz? Maybe? I know he cuts himself when he kills someone. Does he cut his face or does he cut his body? It's been too fucking long since I gotta get back into some of these stories. Anyway, but yeah, I can't help but wonder if that is what is supposed to be. I'm not sure Zaz in the comics is inspired by Joker, but I could see how that, you know, that it works, you know, certainly. But yeah, you know, and I quite appreciate the detail that the guard that said, you know, oh, you have a visitor. He sure did disappear into thin fucking air. Like, he went way ahead of Arthur and didn't come back and say, Arthur, where are you? You know, all the other times, if Arthur, even when Arthur isn't dawdling, they're still gonna, like, shove him and say, come on, keep it moving, you know. And again, you know, if someone asks, they'll say, well, he was being too slow. He was holding up the line. We have a schedule. You know, all this kind of fucking bullshit. Just, abusers are going to abuse. They're going to find some way to abuse. Don't let it, you know, if you at all have a chance to get out of an abusive relationship, you know, you might need help. There's no shame in that. But try to get out of it as quickly as you can. It's only going to get worse. But yeah, you know, suddenly the guard's nowhere to be seen. He knew what was about to happen. He probably thought Arthur should have fried, you know. Let's see. And actually, yeah, I mean, they did say that they found him guilty, but then there was a bomb. I'm not 100% certain if the... Yeah, it's been too long since yeah, wait, maybe, let's see, because if... Actually, yeah, no, I could see how, because, like, the judge didn't say, I sentence you to death. So, the procedure hasn't been completed. If jury members are dead, they might have to get a new jury. They might be intimidated, might be scared of another bomb, which might end up meaning he gets off. Yeah, I could see how and maybe also someone wanted it to be more personal like that. But yeah, you know, the punchline is the same. You get what you fucking deserve. You know, he says, well, if I can get you anything, how about I get you what you fucking deserve? Something along those lines, you know, possibly not verbatim, but yeah, very nice line. And Arthur didn't see it coming. You know, he didn't stop and think, wait, a joke is being told. This guy says he's a really big fan of mine. I recently pissed off a lot of people. Maybe this is, yeah. Right, I kind of wonder how much of, like, you know, remember back when the DCEU was like this, you know, there was a while where they kind of just greenlit anything that like, they were throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. There was supposed to be a Joker, what's it called, like Joker versus Harley Quinn, maybe, or Harley Quinn versus Joker, something like that. And that was, of course, supposed to be Margot Robbie and Um, Jared Leto. I know that sounds like a joke. No, I legit did forget his name. It's the ADHD acting up. I think he's phenomenal in Requiem for a Dream. You know, I absolutely love his performance in that. I quite enjoy him in Panic Room because I watched that movie too, Raoul. But yeah, I wonder how much of that ended up in this movie. Um, yeah, I think that the whole thing of the singing feels like a natural extension of the dancing from the first one, which that was one of those things. Like when I just watched the movie the first time, it just worked for me. And then someone said he danced like 5 times. I was like, 5? Really? I thought 2 or 3 maybe, but 5? And then I watched it again after having watched that review, and it's like, oh, he does dance 5 times. I still love it. I don't think it's a problem, but yeah. And here they sing a bunch of times, you know. And also, like, if there was ever going to be, you know, yeah, I think it makes perfect sense for the Joker to dance as much as he does in these 2 movies. And the moment that you bring Harley Quinn in, like, honestly, it's kind of wild that they haven't, like, let's see. No, she did not sing in the other movies at all. I actually don't even know if Margot Robbie, I'm not sure I've ever heard her sing, but yeah, it is just the kind of, like, certainly Birds of Prey, you would like, she is in so much control over the narrative in that movie. You could easily have had, they did have a dance scene, but I don't think she sung during it, but they did have that Marilyn Monroe meets Marilyn Manson thing. Yeah, the it makes perfect sense to have her sing. And I kind of love that the movie does actually go through the love story, the Hollywood love story arc. You know, there's a meet cute. Both of them express strong feelings, and you know, yeah, they get together multiple times after that. They both, like, inspire each other and get each other, like, bring each other to life. And by the end, you know, the relationship, you know, there's just been too many, yeah, just the, you know, she said, you know, Joker doesn't exist. The fantasy was all we had, you know. And that is, it's I really appreciate how well they do at making these tragic Joker stories. There's Joker stories I love that aren't tragic, but most of my favorite Joker stories are tragic because he's such a great tragic character. Like, even just the core concept, this idea of someone who has a permanent smile, who can't help but smile and laugh. You know, depending on the version. With Arthur, it's more the uncontrollable laugh than the smiling, but yeah, this sort of thing, and how people react negatively to it outside of a context where it's considered okay to laugh and smile. And so he uses it in this twisted way. He hurts people whilst laughing and smiling, whilst telling jokes, you know. And that was also, like the first one, I thought they did a great job in this one with the jokes that are like, yeah, this feels like a joke that the Joker would tell or show. Sometimes it's visual. Let's see. What was the other thing I really wanted to make sure to say? Let's see, I talked about the singing and the relationship. Right, I saw someone online say, oh, there's a way for them to make another movie. I guess because she's pregnant with the kid, maybe? Or do they mean, like, Zaz? Or... And I appreciate, you know, Harvey, you know, the explosion. Yeah, it looked like that might be when he becomes Two-Face, you know, which, yeah, it's an attack in a courthouse. You know, that is how it is in the comic, which they, you know, do. There's a reference to that in The Dark Knight. I think that's all I'll say about that one. Okay, that can wait. Yeah, let's see. What was the other thing? Yeah, I thought they did a great job illustrating the love through the song and dance bits, and the set changes, costume changes, all of this stuff. And yeah, I really appreciate the fact, you know, she pulls a gun on him twice in their fantasies, and then, you know, she almost shoots herself listening to the answering machine. Let's see, and we have the once he realizes she lied, he imagines her, you know, they're you know, she's playing too much to the crowd, what about me? And then she's like, well, someone's making it about himself, but it's not me. Which I really love, because it does, like, I'll admit I'm not the biggest connoisseur of shows like that, but I've seen enough to know some showbiz duos do that. You know, they'll have this thing of, like, acting like they're getting in an argument, and then, you know, they'll say, oh, let's do it right, you know, let's give the audience what they want, kind of thing. And yeah, you know, he really thought, oh, we're gonna do it, this is the big thing. And then she pulls out a gun and even shoots him, and, you know, we go back to snap back to reality, you know, complete with gravity. And then later, when he's stabbed, he flashes back to that, and it's this thing of, like, that's when his soul died. You know, she brought him back from the brink. He had given up. We see, you know, at the start of the movie, yeah, he gave up after the, you know, he it was exhilarating, the end of the first movie for him, but since then he's given up, you know. And yeah, she brought him back, and then he realized she had been lying to him. And that, I consider that the beginning of the end. That's when he didn't decide just then that he was going to renounce Joker, but that was the first step towards that. Let's see. And yeah, these things about, no, you know, she claimed that they lived in the same neighborhood, that she lived in the same neighborhood as him. She claimed her father was dead. Her mother hated her and had her, you know. And then it's like, no, she lives in a nice place. You know, her father's a doctor. Her mother and her have a great relationship. She was she was voluntarily, you know, she had herself put in, which, you know, yeah, that's a thing you can do if you feel like you need, you know, you can go to a place like that without someone else forcing you to go there. And, you know, she does even admit to having lied, and it is really great because, yeah, you know, for a while we're sitting there wondering, how comic accurate is this going to be? Not because it has to be, but just, you know, it's a fun game when you've read enough comics to see, you know, because in the comics she's not an inmate, she's his doctor, she's the psychiatrist who, you know, they actually did get that fairly decently in the backstory of the 2016 Suicide Squad. You know, she thought she was curing him, she was actually falling in love. And yeah, it turns out, no, she, you know, well, I said, is she technically a psychiatrist? She could be. She had that kind of education, if I understood correctly, from the movie, you know. But she is obsessed with him, you know. She watched the movie 4 or 5 times, not 20. Which, fair enough, you know, 4 times 5 is 20. So she was just being a little creative. I think that might be about... Yeah, I love that their relationship starts and ends in song. You know, the first time they meet each other, there's the choir singing, and not long after he starts singing. and the last time they see each other, she breaks up in song, and he's like, please just talk, which I guess that's he's representing the audience that went to the movie and didn't know it was going to be a musical. Like, please stop the singing, I don't understand this. Now, it's fine if you don't like musicals. I do think this is probably, they're singing in the trailer, like I feel like you could deduce from the trailers that this is going to be a musical. That's all I'm saying. And there's a lot of non-musical movies out there that you could watch instead of this, including ones that have a lot of Joker in them, including some really amazing ones. And then there's also Suicide Squad 2016. But the let's see, what's the other thing that I want to yeah, for the first 20 or 30 minutes, this isn't really a musical yet, and I think it's perfect, because that is the thing. Again, I was thinking, oh, this is going to hit the ground running being a musical, like Demon Bar of Fleet Street. One of the first things in that movie is a song. I think we're just a few minutes into that movie when we get our first song. And here, it's 20 or 30 minutes, but that's because when Arthur is just by himself, his life has no singing. It used to have dancing, but it never had singing. Then Lee comes into his life, and he starts singing. He's dancing again, I feel like by the end of this movie, I actually knew what was just in Arthur's head and what was reality, which I can't say with certainty about the first movie, and I appreciate that they went in a different direction. Like there's an interpretation that says most of the first movie is in Arthur's head. I've seen an interpretation that says that when we see the ending, and he's like, I was thinking of a joke, but you wouldn't get it. I've seen some theorize that's where he's been the entire movie. Everything in the movie up to that point has been entirely in his head. And I don't think that's an invalid interpretation at all. This movie, yeah, like there's that bit where he starts dancing and then it cuts and someone is like, no, answer his question. So it's like, oh, that whole thing really was just in his head. I didn't think they were going to do that. And they did that multiple times. I will also say, when I watched the trailer, I thought the part where he's in Joker makeup in the courtroom, I thought that was only ever going to happen in fantasy sequences. And at first it is, but then, later, and yeah, the judge is like, well, I reviewed other cases, and I don't just, what the fuck, I don't know. Technically, there's nothing in the rule book that says a dog can't wear clown makeup and represent himself in court. I don't know. Just and Joker's like, do you think it's a little late to not turn this into a circus? Like, just yeah. I feel like the judge from Liar Liar, R.I.P. talented actor, is like looking down from heaven on this this judge and being like, I tried to warn you, I don't know what to tell you. This is what happened. Just, what were my exact words? I told you, if you have a comedian in the courtroom and he's trying to be a lawyer, shit's gonna get weird. And you didn't listen. But yeah, that was, yeah, I do really appreciate, like, near the end, Arthur really is fully embracing, I am Joker. This is my real face. And Gary tells him, and yeah, and he says to Gary, maybe you didn't really know me. No one knew me. And now, everyone cares. And that's the thing. Like, he's upset when Gary says that he didn't see the Murray. That's Life, I think the show was called, when Arthur was on. And it seems Gary's not lying. He really was being kept, for his own protection. And yeah, just like that's that's the thing that really gets to, to Arthur there. And I mentioned that earlier with the guards, and that is the thing. This movie is in part about toxic masculinity. It's about, yeah, feeling like you're not enough and engaging in violence as, to reassert your masculinity, to take back control of your life and your surroundings, to hurt the people around you who hurt you. And I really, really admire that the movie does end up completely rejecting that, because that is the thing. If I had one criticism of the first movie, I have very little negative to say about the first movie, but I don't love that there at the end, yeah, it does kind of, it's not really saying, like, obviously, I really don't think that Todd Phillips, for a single second, ever wanted to encourage misogynists and other, but I especially heard about misogynists, he didn't realize that that's what would happen. And I've seen reviewers, professional critics say that this movie is sort of trying to take back, take control of the narrative and reassert, no, fuck you guys. As far as I'm concerned, we are not affiliated with Geeks and Gamers. This is not, I'm not one of you. I'm not trying to give you a hero. I'm trying to say this is what sometimes happens. I'm not trying to glorify it, and I wish Todd Phillips had been at least a little bit more careful when making that first movie. And it is one of those things, if it had come out, in the 70s, it would have been a different, like, I don't know for sure, but I can imagine there's some people who watch Taxi Driver and think, oh, hero, when like, no, that's absolutely not what you're supposed to think, yeah. And it's just, yeah, it came out at a time when you really didn't want to be adding fuel to the fire that the incels started, so. But yeah, I really appreciate, this movie does very much say, no, you don't want to be Arthur. You don't want to worship Arthur. So yeah. I really loved Gary's testimony. I thought it was so powerful when he, after enduring some, Joker is basically like, yeah, doing insult comedy, like, is that really your name? Am I really supposed to believe it? He's trying to get a rise out of him, And when he finally gets down to it, yeah, Gary, and I really appreciate, like, by the end, Joker's like, Judge, please make him stop. I told him to stop talking. I can't get him to stop. This wasn't supposed to happen. People were supposed to stop being able to hurt me when I became Joker. That's how it works. I put on the makeup, I put on the suit, I threaten people, I insult people, I do the thing, and they're supposed to not be able to hurt me anymore the way that they always hurt me before, Judge, please, I'm begging you here, just that was fantastic. Because that didn't have to be there, but it really added to the movie. That, yeah, and yeah, Gary explains, you did hurt me. You didn't kill me, you didn't stab me, but you hurt my soul. I can't sleep. I'm scared all the time. I can't do my job. I never used to be scared. You were nice to me, Arthur. Why did you do this to me? And that was just so devastating. Just, really cuts deep. And I honestly, that bit alone, I think, makes the movie's existence worth it. And obviously, there's a lot of other wonderful things about it. But yeah, when you watch that first movie, I'll admit, I wasn't really thinking too much about how it affected Gary, emotionally, especially like long term. We're so used to movies not probing into that, and yeah, when you're making a sequel, you can do that. I forget what they said at the start of the movie, but I'm afraid I forgot. But it's been a while. The movie. This movie does not start like the day after the events of the first movie. it's been a little while, and for all that time, Gary has struggled sleeping. He hasn't been able to work. He's afraid all the time. Yeah, Arthur scares him, and he never used to. They used to like working together. That was one of the few, yeah, they liked, like, if Gary used to be afraid of him, Gary wouldn't have gone to his apartment near the end of the first movie. That just wouldn't have been, of course not. Like, that's not the kind of thing you do for someone that you really don't like. Like, what, to, like, gloat or something? Like, no, he went there because he wanted to support him, and that's what happened. He risked, his safety. Arguably, unknowingly, he didn't know at the time that Arthur was actually dangerous. But yeah, and that's what he gets. That's what he gets for being a good person. And that's the thing. Arthur's not the only one suffering. He feels like he is. He certainly tells himself that he's standing up for all of them, but he hurt Gary, and yeah, like that detail about, they kept me in protective, what's it? Yeah, some protective something overnight or something like that, because they were afraid that Arthur would try to kill Gary, and I mean, that's horrifying. Like, imagine thinking of someone else as a friend, and then one day you witness them killing someone else, and then you seriously think, are they gonna kill me too? And that's what Arthur did. That's what Arthur did to Gary, and he also scared Sophie, and Sophie did nothing to him. She, yeah, like so I thought that was fantastic. I also thought Sophie's testimony was quite good. I'm really glad that they did bring her. The moment that they mentioned, let's see, first, yeah, first Harvey, I think, mentions, that night, Arthur went to Miss Dumont's apartment, and I was thinking, oh, are they gonna reveal what exactly happened? And then, nothing comes of it right away, and I thought, oh, I guess they're not gonna do it. I really appreciate that I like the little bit of, the little tease there. Joker and Harley have been known to tease their audiences. But yeah, he didn't do anything to her. He apologized, said he had a hard, or I forget if he apologized. He said he had a hard day, and then he left. He didn't do anything. He didn't even threaten to do anything. And yeah, she says, I didn't really know him. I just, his mother told me some things about him. And, that's one of the times we get the mention of, like, basically in this movie, nobody thinks Joker is well, almost no one. There's some of his supporters who think he's funny, but I feel like that might also be a thing of, like, I'll admit that I did laugh at a number of Arthur's jokes in the first one. I don't know if Todd Phillips is saying fuck you to me. I can live with that. But I think he's definitely trying to say fuck you to the people who were, like, saying, Arthur is funny and also correct. It's that thing of, like, just because you, I mean, I don't know where, if, let's see, it's a chicken and egg thing. Did people think he was funny and therefore right, or right and therefore they laughed at jokes even if they didn't think that they were necessarily funny? But yeah, and in this one, there's the thing about, oh, so, you made, you killed Murray with a joke. And they says, it wasn't even a good joke. Look, Todd, baby, if you don't want us to ever laugh at Arthur Fleck's jokes, you are going to have to stop making at least some of them funny. Because I'm sorry, that's a funny fucking joke. And it's a very Joker joke. You know, you killed him with a bad joke. Yeah, I know, it wasn't my A material. Let's see. Then we have the with Sophie giving her, Zazie Beetz killing it as usual. I gotta find more movies to watch. So far, I've only seen her when she pops up in these comic book adaptations. So these two Joker movies and Deadpool 2. She's great in all three of these, but I really want to see her in something else as well. But yeah, absolutely kills it. But yeah, let's see, I forget her character name, but Catherine Keener, the defense attorney, she keeps getting these really embarrassing things that Penny said about Arthur, and we're hearing people laugh at it, and one can understand why eventually Joker just does snap and fire her and represent himself. I really enjoyed how Arthur is especially worried about how close Lee is to he writes on the and holds up so that Catherine Keener can read, "Can you get Lee a closer seat?" And she just walks away, turns and walks away. Ugly pants, hands in pockets. I'm not insulting her wardrobe. That's a reference to a literal music video. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, and she does gradually come closer and closer. And the thing about, I think there was Sophie. I became a character in that awful TV movie. And Arthur turns to Lee. It's like, awful? And she's like, no. Again, that's the thing he cares about, he is being faced with the fact that he terrified this woman, and the thing he's caring about is how good the movie was. I suppose this is a decent time to briefly, so yeah, they made a TV movie depicted about the events of the, up to and including him killing Murray. There was a book, The Day the Laughter Died, I think it was called, and that was also, Put on a Happy Face is about what he was going to write, and then the guy let slip, this book is going to be worth so much money when they fry him. I mean, and then I don't think I'm going to repeat what he wrote, but yeah, he is not very appreciative of what the guards said. Let's go with that. And let's see, what was the other thing? Fuck, I feel like there was at least one more thing of the... Right, yeah, we have the interview. Patty, interviews him, and the fact that the trial itself is apparently being broadcast live, which is, of course, also part of why his ego becomes such a big part of it. And, I've said before, I don't think... I think trials shouldn't really be particularly public. I appreciate that it's important to make sure nothing, to make sure the justice is done. I don't think that's, I can appreciate that it can be a help in that regard, but it can also hurt very badly in other regards. I think it was terrible that the Depp Heard trial was so public. I'm not saying that Amber Heard is some saint who never made a mistake in her life, but the way, the misogyny against her and this groundswell of support for Depp, who we've known for a while, had problems with controlling himself and like hurting people. Like, this is not news. You know, if you've at all been paying attention, I barely pay attention, and even I know, you know, I don't particularly want to hear, you know, I want justice to be done. I don't see, yeah, basically the way I feel. I think that if someone is guilty of something really bad, they should no longer get to be a celebrity, and that way, you know, we don't have to... I don't want to have to dig through the dirty laundry of celebrities. I deal with, you know, if someone is close to me, if someone is in my life and close to me, obviously I want to try to solve I want to be part of solving their problems if that's what they want from me. But I really don't want to know the dirty laundry of celebrities, and I don't think we get a lot out of knowing that. If someone has done a crime, they should be punished, including, yeah, basically just being banned from show business. I think that would make... Anyway, yes, public trial, back to that. You know, there's one point where in his fantasy, I think it's Sophie giving all these really, really humiliating details, which I also saw. I saw someone in a professional review say, you know, Todd Phillips is going out of his way to humiliate Arthur Fleck as much as at all possible. He does not want... I feel like he woke up in the middle of the night in cold sweats many times while working on this, and like went and made sure, okay, are we going far enough with this? I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing. I certainly do appreciate trying to make sure that nobody idolizes him ever again. But yeah, it's a thing. Let's go with that. When Sophie is saying these humiliating things that she heard from Penny, which is, of course, you know, there's layers of humiliation there. It's the fact that his mother was sharing these things, and you know, one of them, I think, yeah, the one that really especially sets him off, triggers, and I use that unironically. I hope I hope at some point in my lifetime I won't even have to specify. I'll just be able to say it triggered them, and people won't think that I'm making a joke out of PTSD. But yeah, he was triggered when Sophie said Penny thought it was ridiculous that Arthur would base so much of his life, base his entire life, on a story that obviously wasn't true. You know, this thing about, oh, he's put on the world to make people smile. You know, and that... Yeah, just like the fact, even that was a fucking... So that was a fucking lie, you know, even that. When, like, just when we thought that there couldn't have been more lies told to him about and during his childhood, even that, you know, it was just, she just said it so he wouldn't, you know, off himself. And yeah, you know, at one point during her testimony, he imagines himself in Joker makeup going around shooting the cameraman because he doesn't want the whole world to hear all this stuff. But yeah, back to the... Yeah, so the layers of humiliation. You know, Penny is... Yeah, Penny not only... You know, yeah, some of the things he knew that she knew, but some of it is news to him. This thing of... And that's also, like... I feel like the Catherine Keener character could easily have told him, by the way, you know, this is just to emotionally prepare you for the, you know, and that's also, like, I don't think the Catherine Keener character does really believe. I think she wants to win, and I can imagine she maybe thinks that it's better for Arthur Fleck to be not executed, you know, for him to... Yeah, I think she means it when she says she wants him away from those horrible guards. She wants him in an institution where he'll be treated humanely, but she doesn't think of him as a full human being, or she wouldn't have this kind of thing, you know. Yeah. But yeah, so layers of humiliation. Penny saying these things to Sophie, and then Sophie telling the world. You know, I mean, Sophie's there to you know, testify, but she knows there's cameras there. You know, hypothetically, she could have refused. Right. I love the fact that, you know, she says she did ultimately decide to testify because she thinks she should have called the police. She holds herself partially responsible for the deaths of Murray and the people who died during the riots, I think, and Randall. Let's see. Right, and Patty also. You know, you have that thing about, you know, Catherine Keener's character says, you know, you shouldn't smoke, and so he doesn't, but then Patty does. I'm not entirely sure that he heard her say that, but anyway, but yeah, just this thing of like, again, you have this, you know, Arthur is the disempowered one, and someone else has power over him, has something that he wishes he had himself. Let's see, then we have the element of, yeah, you know, the thing of, you know, so should I call you Arthur or Joker? You know damn well you're not supposed to call him Joker. That was part of the agreement. Get her out of here. So, Joker, you know, he's doing that on purpose. He's trying to rile him up because it'll make for good television, you know. I think that might... I feel like there's at least one more thing. I was actually expecting us to find out who set off the car bomb, but I mean, it must have been someone who supported him. Let's see. Yeah, probably figuring that he would get the death penalty, so they blew up so that he could get out of there. And yeah, you know, you have this thing of they're gonna try to get him away from there in the cab. And yeah, he's like, no more. This is, I can't do this anymore. I can't be responsible for more violence, you know. And let's see. I think that might be about... Yeah, honestly, when I saw the trailer, I really thought the Joker and Harley dancing as there's a fire, as there's an ambulance driving by, I thought that was gonna be like the shared delusion, your Folie à Deux. But no, that apparently actually did happen. I really did not see that coming. Her father must be rich, or I guess maybe nobody realized she set the fire for her to be able to just get out after that. I don't know. I feel like you know, in the first one, they figure out that Arthur's probably the killer because the makeup, the train at that time, all the, you know, these are things that they could have found. I mean, they called the clown department and, you know, said, you know, do you know of a clown that was, because they know where the killings took place and when, and the train. The woman who was being harassed almost definitely said, you know, I heard gunshots, there was a clown in there. You know, she might not have even said it must have been him, but just, you know, she gave... It's kind of memorable. You don't share a subway car with a clown every single day. No, I don't think I can make that statement. No, we're just gonna move on. Unless you live in New York, fuck. Anyway, yes. Yes. So they knew that it had to be Arthur, so they keep trying to question him, and he's like, you know, my mom's dying. It's, you know, and yeah, I feel like it would be extremely easy to tell it must be Lee who set that fire, because she got up, walked over and sat back down, and suddenly there's a fire. Like, just, yeah. But yeah, that was also, it's such a wonderfully Joker-y thing to have people dancing and being happy whilst there's a fire and ambulance and, you know, fire truck and all this. Just, yeah. And it really captures, you know, like, most of us don't do anything that destructive, but it does capture the vibrancy and the energy, the electricity of when you're, you know, when you and someone else just fell in love, like right at the start. It's so intense, you know. So they're dancing and they're playing and hiding and running. Just, they're so happy, you know. And because it's Joker and Harley Quinn, they're also setting fires and people are getting hurt and this kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah, the bit where he calls and it's the answering machine and then he sings, that also felt very much like that one, the phone call in Taxi Driver, so I feel like that's almost definitely a reference. Yeah, I mentioned One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. When he's like got the little hat and he's got the cigarette and he's, you know, does the face and then turns around, walks off. That felt very much like, you know, just, yeah. I think he studied the Jack Nicholson performance in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest for that. Let's see. That might actually be just about. God, I feel like there's at least one. I wish I could say more about the songs. Yeah, hopefully in future. This is not going to be the last time I review a musical. Hopefully in the future I'll be able to better put words to. But yeah, they did a good job finding songs. You know, like early on, it's just like, I'm in love. The world is, you know, the world is wonderful. Life is magic. And then over the course of it, it gets to be a little bit more conflict in some of the love songs, and yeah, by the end, you know, we're down to, or not down to, but we're doing sad love songs and such, you know. So yeah, let's see. I When I watched the first one, I didn't need to see a sequel, and you know, apparently, like, Todd Phillips apparently at least one point said they would never be, or he would never make a sequel or something like that, and he changed his mind. You know, the fact that we waited 5 years, I have to wonder if at least some of it was he really didn't want to end up. You know, I don't know how much of making this movie was motivated by trying to put out the fire that he really did not mean to start, of firing up the incels and other misogynists, you know. And it's just, it's so wild. Like, I'm not gonna mansplain. If there's any female feminist out there who watches Joker 1 and says this movie is misogynist, I'm not gonna argue with you on that. I do think that if you are a male misogynist and you watch Joker 1, and the thing you take away from it is women are to blame for pain, for the pain of men, and and violence is justifiable based on that. I mean, work on your media literacy. Like, seriously. Obviously, I'm not going to pretend like there's nothing. Again, it's not for me to say whether. I don't think. I think it's for female feminists to say whether the film is at least somewhat misogynist. That's not for me to say. I'm not going to try to. Yeah. But the movie is very clearly pointing a finger at rich and powerful people and saying that's what, like, just look at how many mentions there are of that. Like, the garbage men have gone on strike because they're not being treated well enough by the powerful. Every powerful person, you know, both Alfred, Alfred and Thomas, both are, you know, it's been a little while since I watched it. I would have watch it again for this, but back pain. I think both of them slug Arthur when he encounters them, and he's literally just saying, you know, I think I'm related to the Wayne family. You know, I just want a little bit of, you know, maybe a hug, Dad. You know, like he's not there for the billions. You know, he's not there to slander him or something. You know, and yeah, you know, Thomas goes on TV and says, if you know, I forget the exact wording, but something like, you know, you are all clowns, or, you know, I think you're a clown, something. No, yeah, it's one of the protesters who holds up a sign that says we are all clowns, I think. Anyway, but yeah, you know, and you've got the room full of rich people watching Charlie Chaplin in, like, God, I'm going to hell. I'm sorry, I do not remember the name of the fuck. But it's the one where he's like criticizing industrialism, you know, and like, yeah, it's it's hilarious, you know. It's been a while since I watched it. I don't think I unfortunately don't have a copy. I do have a copy of The Great Dictator, and I think it's called The Gold Rush, which are both excellent. Just, I'm probably gonna do videos specifically on Chaplin. He was a fucking genius, absolute comedic genius. But yeah, you know, the industrialism one, yeah, it's funny, but you're supposed to laugh at how ridiculous it is that, you know, the working class are being forced to put up with this kind of shit. And you see this room of rich people laughing, and you get the sense they don't think it's that it's, you know, they're not laughing because they acknowledge that industrialism was inhumane to the working class. They're laughing because they're looking at a member of the working class, you know, looking like a fool. You know, they can't even appreciate that the film is criticizing them. You know, like the movie, the first Joker movie is so loaded with this political subtext. It's clearly trying to criticize this, and to yeah, if you're a misogynist and you watched it and you thought, oh wow, yeah, women's, like, yeah, okay, Penny, you know, did some horrible things. I'm with Jenny Nicholson. I think it's pretty gross that it blames her for the abuse of her partner. Is like, no, but that's not how it works, though. If she might have been, you know, if she tried to stop him, he might have hit her. Like, it's more complicated than that. It's not, you know, yeah. That was one thing, and another, you know, like, obviously Arthur is very upset when he realizes that he imagined the relationship with Sophie, but like, she didn't do anything to like, and she doesn't even do anything wrong when it is revealed. Like, think about how easy it would have been to write that scene with, you know, when she sees him in there, she could like call him pathetic or say, you know, say something horrible, but she doesn't. She just says, you have to get out of here. My kid's in the other room, please. Could you go be with your mother? You know, and she doesn't know that his mother is dead. You know, so the, yeah, it's just, and yeah, there's two female mental health employees who, I mean, it seemed like they were trying to help Arthur. I know one of them isn't really listening, but, you know, like, yeah, it's yeah, it was cool to see her back as well. And that's when we get one of the gratuitous mentions of him not being funny, his unfunny jokes, which, like, wow, that was like, you know, mental health care professional and comedy critic. I did kind of, once the Ken Leung character had been shown up, which, you know, that was one part where the Catherine Keener character really came out looking at, you know, oh, I talked to him for 2 hours. It was actually 89 minutes. Got that, jury? Did you hear that, stenographer? Okay. you know, but yeah, she really very, very thoroughly, you know, wipes the floor with him. You know, and part of me just wants her to, you know, as soon as she's done with that, you know, go bust some ghosts on the Lost Island, you doofus. Let's see. I suppose it might be more appropriate if he went to, you know, went back to the set of, I want to say it's the first Saw movie he was in. I have no idea if he's in more than one. I only watched the first one. Anyway, pretty sure he's in that one anyway. Yes. God damn it. I feel like there's at least one more thing. Yeah, um I think the movie did a good job of showing the violence with the in the prison ward, and like like having a balance between like acknowledging this is bad, like nobody should be treated like this, in my personal opinion, certainly, and I think the movie is also saying that, but also not saying like, look at poor Arthur, what a saint, he never did anything wrong. No, like they're, you know, we can understand, like they know exactly what he did. You know, they no guard is ever like, who the fuck is this guy? Like all of them are like, oh, Arthur Fleck got a joke for us, want to make us laugh, you know, which like, because that was, you know, he was telling a joke, he was trying to make people laugh when he shot Murray. So yeah, you know, it is like you can understand, like clearly they think they acknowledge that that was terrible. You know, I agree that Murray definitely see. I would say in some ways I think Murray. Yeah, I mean in general, just yeah, the powerful people in the first Joker, I thought came out looking so much worse than any female character. Certainly, someone like Penny, who like, yeah, you know, she made mistakes, but we could also appreciate her humanity. You know, like there's really not very much humanity to Thomas, Murray, and Alfred. Like even if you want to say, oh, Alfred was, you know, just trying to protect Master Wayne, he wanted to keep young Bruce safe. Didn't need to slug a complete stranger for like. Yes, Arthur was being a little extra, a little creepy there, but it's completely unnecessary. You know, I think, yeah, and you know, I've said it before. I really appreciate a violence begets violence message in media. You know, I love it in this and in A History of Violence. There's probably others. That was the other example that came to mind just now. Yeah, you know, really appreciate, because I do think I appreciate. Look, I'm only human. Sometimes I think, you know, oh, couldn't we just, you know, would it be so wrong if we stopped that thing with violence? And I catch myself say, yes, it would be wrong. Violence should only ever be a last resort. Because, yeah, if you look at reality, if you look at the numbers, if you look at the facts, violence begets more violence. Sometimes it doesn't immediately beget more violence, but then, you know, a little while passes and someone becomes aware, oh, hey, there was violence there, and they realize that that violence ruined lives, and it enrages them, and then they go into violence, and they're met with violence. And it just, it's the kind of thing, you know, once you get into that, it becomes a vicious circle. Just keeps going around and around, never stops. That's what makes it vicious and a circle.